Really sounds like you got the strep too.
I have strep. We all
Yeah.
have strep. No. I got tested. I'm positive for strep. Like
Oh,
there's no doubts. It's medically proven.
medically, scientifically proven
Yes,
is a fact.
all three of us have strep throat.
God damn.
Yeah, I am really sick of being sick. Just sick. So
You
much
know,
of being sick.
it's funny too because I mentioned to Kayla, I was like, "Yeah, so I don't know what the sitch is, but Zach and the whole house is sick," and she's like, "They're always sick."
The last 6 months we've been like patient zeros here, man. It's COVID, then puke
God,
sick, then better than puke sick, then Stella got a broken arm, then I now we got strep throat. It's constant. I don't.
Jesus.
It's been terrible these last few months. Like just absolutely terrible. Let's get into this. Just a couple of things. I might use some of this as a bonus, but I'm probably not going to do bonus or cold open in betweens. I'm not going to stop it because I need to be done as fast as
You need to be
possible
done.
today. So
Okay.
I'm going to do fan interaction, and then we're going to go right into the talking point. Okay. Because I don't want to skip
Alrighty.
fan interaction, but we're just going to do it live, basically. We're going to Bill
Do it
O'Reilly it.
live. You're gonna bill it. No, that is not what we aspire for. That is the most not what we aspire for.
No, I didn't mean. I don't have the energy for you today, Neil. All right, going in three, two,
I have the
one.
energy for both of us.
Time to get your fix. It's a horrible gaming podcast. It's not good, it's not great. Horrible gaming podcast. It's not even what you would call fair. It's really not that good. Horrible Gaming Podcast.
Hello, my name is Zachariah with Old Man Gaming. Welcome. You have chosen, for whatever reason, another horrible gaming podcast. Before we get into anything, yes, my whole family's sick again. We now have strep throat, so that's fun.
Promise I'm not laughing at you. It's just your deadpan ass delivery.
That's all I got, Neil. That's all I
No,
got.
you can't help it.
My throat hurts so bad, guys. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna do this live. So this is gonna be a jumbled mess of a show today. But Redfall came out. It was an absolute mess. We got to talk about it. I don't want to miss out on talking about it because my experiences with it have been tortured at best. So we're gonna get into that. But I'm not alone. Usually I'm never alone. With me is
Neil, aka Tiny Wizard.
I am, of course, Zachariah with Old Man Gaming. I don't know if I said that. I think I forgot to say that.
I
in
can't
it-
remember.
In any case, we have to thank the people who made this possible. Behind our heads, you're seeing a fancy graphic that is not arranged correctly. Go me. There we go. That's at least a little bit better. And that was provided by Mr. Mark Bell. We thank him for that. The theme song for this show and all the shows here at Old Man Gaming provided by the man who makes the music, my brother Nick Van Siders. We thank him for that. And as I said, with the promise of no cuts, I mean, we're not getting paid for the podcast anymore anyway. So let's just jump right into comments. My camera's off center. There we go. All right, so
This is peak horrible gaming podcast
this
right
is
here.
this is the
This is
horriblest
peak.
horrible gaming right here. I'm
This
sorry,
is
guys.
peak performance.
I don't like to miss podcasts. I don't like to leave you guys hanging. I like to have one ready for you. Like it's, and I
That
like.
just that just
I-
shows your dedication to the craft, if craft is what you would call this. That in actual in actual
I think.
suffering, still cobbling something together and slapping it out there.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess, for better or worse. It might be better if I just took a day off, but yeah. I know that you guys want to talk about Redfall. I want to talk about it just because our podcast went up the day after it came out, and we were just talking about how excited we were for it. So, like, I want to refruit that. And I'm going to get grumpy with this. I just want to let everybody out there know I'm very grumpy. My throat hurts very much. So if for any reason you get upset by anything I say in here, just please try and keep that in mind. I'm not having a great day. I'm not having a great 6 months when it comes to health. All right. But we always do fan interaction. First segment, always the first segment that is fan interaction. If we can, unless we pre-record it, obviously. So let's read them out. William Hohen. Hi! Exclamation point. Yep. I'm totally fine with DLC the way you explained it in the beginning. Unfortunately, it is often not the way it is done. Okay. Bras in French is actually Sautine Gorge. I like the gorge.
Oh.
I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. But it's Soutine-Gorge. So maybe it's like a Sautine Gorge or something like that.
That sounds about right.
Would be weird to translate. Literally would be throat support, but doesn't make much sense, does it? Laugh out loud. For my off topic, still on Streets of Rage 4, doing some achievement hunting. I'm 36 out of 45. Going well played on all the characters for the achievements, and Cherry's still the best to me. I'm about to talk about that. Was quite surprised with Estelle. Anyway, thanks for the show. Cheers. # companies merger ugh. So, Will, I do want to jump in real quick on Streets of Rage 4 because I don't think I properly responded to you talking about how you're into Streets of Rage 4. And I think I'm actually merging your podcast with our podcast because I know you talked about it somewhere and I didn't mention it. So happy you're playing Streets of Rage 4. It is, currently in my personal ranking, the second best side-scrolling brawler that has ever been made. It was first best until last year when River City Girls came out. But it is the second best side-scrolling brawler of all time. Combo system, the fighting is amazing. Cherry is not the best character by a long shot. I love her. She's cool. I'm an Estelle man. Estelle's all the way Estelle. And she's a cop, so you know that she's got to be good if I like her. I also love her. I love the fashion choices in that game. Like the fact that Estelle, and you'll remember this, Neil, that Estelle wears just a bulletproof vest with no top on other than the bulletproof vest. So I'm a Estelle guy. I also really like Shiva, but Shiva's a tricky one to play. You have to.
I was gonna say, yeah, that one, because that one he was a boss character, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, the characters hadn't come out when you and I did Streets of Retro.
Okay.
So, oh man. All right. So, basically, what Shiva does is he can't use weapons at all. He can only kick him away from himself. But he can air combo like nobody's business. And in survival mode, if you get the jump master, he actually has a full air combo. But which is awesome because for the most part people can't hit you while you're air comboing, so you have a lot of time in midair to plan your next move. So Shiva's a lot of fun. But I'm glad you're enjoying the game, Will. I love the game. I think it's a lot of fun. Backdraft. So far, the only game I'm excited for is Armored Core 6 and Remnant 2. That's 2 games, not game. 2 game. Sorry, being nitpicky because I feel like poopy. So far, owning the Series X has been a letdown. Okay, that's fair. But has Game Pass been a letdown? No. It hasn't. It has a library of games that are infinitely replayable, and it continues to add AA and AAA games into it, even if they're not just Series X exclusives. And that's the trick.
Midnight Suns is coming out this month on Game Pass.
That's what I'm saying. Like, that's the trick to Xbox right now. Is it's not about the exclusives for Xbox. It's about Game Pass. That's what you would miss if you got rid of your Series X and got a PlayStation 5. And that's the big problem, you know? But we are definitely going to get into letdowns if you guys continue to listen through all of the terrible noises coming out of my face right now.
I mean, honestly, if you've listened this long, disappointment is in your nature.
Oh, yeah, seriously. I don't know how you do it. I don't have anything, like, I ran out of pop, and, like, my fizzy water is great, but it just doesn't do it for my throat. So, like, let's keep going. Jason jumps in. Logic from government. What sign of the apocalypse is this? I cannot agree with you more, Jason. It is a weird day when a government body is the voice of reason. And let me just go ahead and point out how crazy fucked up is the industry when a government is the voice of reason. You know, like, good God, man. Good God. Like, you gotta be doing something wrong. Jason then continues. The super muscle mutant Street Fighter looks like certain gay art styles. Gay is a hyper-masculine, bizarre body proportions. Giant chest, giant arms and legs, tiny head. Oh, okay. That makes sense. Then he continues. The Pokemon Go stuff being in the city is... Okay. The Pokemon Go stuff being in the city is because it uses pre-existing infrastructure. It just uses those signals, and other stuff uses those signals too. It uses Google Maps, dog. Just uses Google Maps. That's what it uses. It's not like it's bouncing it off a Chipotle. It's fucking Google Maps. Google Map. You can't tell me that you can't place a Pokestop in the fucking middle of a forest and be like, oh, we could track him to there. Because it's Google Maps. You could track me on Google Maps to there. You could track me there. It's satellite. It's Google Maps.
I think it would be interesting if you could, like, do, like, a build your own gym. And then from there,
be cool
like,
as hell.
spend a certain amount of resources or something in the
Cool
game
as hell.
to build your own gym somewhere and then make that be a thing. That way other people get to play.
That's the problem. They just strap
without
it.
paying extra.
They just strap it to this other, like, apps, and they just strap it to the city because that's where all the people are going to be. But, like, they don't give you anything. Like, it's not realistic, you know. Like, you think when you pick up Pokemon Go, you think to yourself, this is like the closest you're ever going to be to a Pokemon trainer in the wild, in the actual game, like stepping into another dimension. It's not like that, okay? Because, like, Ash in the fucking cartoon show would walk for like 3 days before he'd find a dingly fuck wandering around in a fucking forest, and then he'd have to figure out how to help that dingly fuck, you know, come to terms with its, like, social awkwardness and its backstory, and we'd learn about the dingly fuck, and then eventually he'd be able to trap the dingly fuck. In Pokemon Go, you go outside, and you're literally, like, avalanched. If you're in a city, you are avalanched by just Pokemon of all shapes, just fucking Bully McBoos and fucking Rack McShits, just like rolling all over you, and you're just grabbing them up. Like, that's not a Pokemon trainer. That's not a Pokemon hunter. You don't go into the woods. They're just in the streets. Could you imagine if that's what Pokemon World would like? Nobody would get anything done. You'd literally have people just shooting them in the streets just because there's so many of them. They're in the fucking way. There'd be a Pokemon open season. That's the problem with Pokemon Go, is that the expectation is like you get to be a Pokemon trainer. But the reality is it's a Google Maps Fitbit app that has Pokemon that just flop around in front of you every so often. And that's like, if they did stuff like that, if they like, oh, yeah, this Pokemon, you can go get this Pokemon, but it's over in the woods, you know? That's where you got to go. Like, make us work for it a little bit. Or like, oh, this one is a city one, but it doesn't pop up all the time. You know what I mean? Like, Or just what you said, the building a gym would be really cool.
You're being massively underutilized here on this channel. You need to be working for Nintendo and naming Pokemon.
The problem is I'd stop coming, especially with the new ones that come out that are just household items.
Yeah.
That like the dude looked around at the house and was like, candle, make one that looks like a candle. Do we have a ceiling fan, Pokemon? Let's do that. Like I would be.
It's
Yeah, it'd be like, can you name this? And I'd be like, yeah, I can name that. It's a ceiling fan. It's a ceiling fan. Ceiling fan. Do you need something special there? Yeah, we need a special name. All right.
Call it a breezer.
Yeah, a breezer. A breezer. Give it like a weird, like look up a colloquial like nickname for it. Like if something's a sandwich one, you just call it hoagie.
Hoagie.
And then finally, Jason says the evolution of DLC is despicable, and I 100% agree with that. I think one of the biggest problems of gaming is that everything that we've seen come into fruition as really cool, awesome ideas have just slowly been distorted into something evil and predatory. Games of service, DLCs, pre-orders, like everything that like started out as like, this is a great way to fix a problem or a great way to do something new in gaming, has slowly deteriorating into just a way for somebody to take advantage of its consumer base. And yeah, it's real sad. It's one of the reasons that every week I get on here and I get crankier and crankier. And you're going to see unfeathered crankiness today. Unfettered crankiness today.
Yeah.
All right, so that's it for fan attraction, man. You got anything else you want to add?
No, I don't think so. I think it's time. I think it's time to get in the gromp.
I did skip over Backdraft's comment. All I did was like correct his grammar. That was a little bit mean on the game's part. Armored Core 6 looks really cool. Armored Core's too goddamn hard. I played the original Armored Cores. I can never get out of the first level. I don't care what that makes me. If that makes me a shitty gamer or makes me a shitty gamer, they're too goddamn hard. And then Remnant 2 looks awesome. Can't wait to play Remnant 2. Very, very, very much fingers crossed that the Borderlands people have not ruined that shit. All right, so let's get into it. Let's get into the talking point. No breaks. No breaks. We're getting this done.
No stop. Just go.
All right, Redfall came out.
Did it?
Yes.
Well, it certainly did. It certainly did come out.
It has been a train wreck critically. Redfall launched and multiple bugs. People don't like the game itself. People don't like the story. IGN gave it an overall 4.
It's an IGN 0.
I want to just go over the timetable. I think is the best way to do this because there's so many points to talk about on this.
Yeah.
So I think the timetable is the best way to do that because the first thing I'm going to do, the first thing I want to do is give an actual rare props to IGN for something. And I very rarely say IGN did a good job. Anybody who has listened to this podcast for any period of time knows how much I hate them. And knows how much I feel like they put disinformation out there. The review embargo for Redfall was up 1 hour prior to when it would have been released. That would have been this last Tuesday, and its release time was fucking midnight. Okay? Mm-hmm. I want you to keep that in mind. So the review embargo would come up at 11 p.m. All right? So here's where the saga starts. 6 o'clock. 2 channels released a review in progress. They released it as a review in progress to get around the review embargo. Also, they had not received copies of the games until like the weekends. And from what I understand, there are some rumors going around that that's one of the reasons that Luke O'Reilly from IGN's Australian branch was the reviewer, because there weren't any reviewers on hand, which I'm so glad Luke got it. He is the only reviewer in IGN that I give 2 shits about his opinion, because he seems honest about things usually. So that being said, 6 o'clock, these two channels release a review in progress. They do not give a score, and that is to get around the review embargo. However, they blast the shit out of this game. IGN basically pointed out all the bugs, how terrible it was, how easy it was to kill vampires, which I actually want to talk about the difficulty spikes, because some shit with that, for me at least, has been crazy, and I'll explain, but later. But here's the reason I actually want to sing the praises of IGN, because IGN is usually in the pocket of these big name game companies. And while I think Microsoft's position critically is very weak right now, so that anybody can take pot shots at them and you really can't do anything about it because they've made so many mistakes with just their game releases in the last couple of years. That being said, the review embargo wasn't up until 11 p.m. If you were somebody who put in a pre-order, you would be fucking asleep when that game would start downloading on your fucking hard drive, and you'd be asleep when the reviews came out. There was no time to stop you from getting that pre-order. I really appreciate that they did this review in progress thing, and they did it early. I can't imagine they didn't take some flack for it. And I appreciate it because it actually gave people a chance to be like, oh no, I don't want to mess with that game. No. And cancel those pre-orders before they, went to bed for the night or whatever. I think it's absolutely shameful when you put a review embargo up. I mean, I don't think pre-release reviews should happen because it just creates too much of a possibility for, shenanigans, basically. We've talked about it so many times because they're still only showing, unless you're reviewing it from the wild, they're only showing you what they want to show you, so I don't like pre-release reviews, but the only thing good for pre-release reviews is to keep somebody from making a stupid purchase, and IGN actually released something that allowed people to not make that stupid purchase if they didn't want to, and I really, really appreciate that. So I'm going to sing their praises there. That'll be all the praises I'd be singing for them. But I very rarely do it, and I want to be fair. I don't want anybody out there thinking, oh, this guy's just an IGN basher, or back when everybody thought I was just a Sony hater. I think that I'm fair. When I see something good, it's good, and that was a good thing. Because this game is not great. We're going to get into it, though. You have anything to add to that before we continue?
Yeah, so it's definitely...
ACG was the other channel to release, and they're actually the reviewers that I really like. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just forgot to actually say the other people.
Yeah, this saga is already unfolding beyond just the review here too, and I feel like we'll touch on that naturally.
Yes. That's why I kind of wanted to go timeline wise, because I feel like that way we can talk about each little section of this.
And we had a separate side conversation as well, because a while ago Bethesda did say that, we don't want to hand out early review copies because we don't want reviews to affect sales, which on the surface how they're presenting it is one of those they don't want people to see that it's a certain number and think that it's a certain type of way, but that's actively at the same time what they're kind of doing is, if the game is garbage,
right,
then it's gonna affect sales. Now, of course, if I remember correctly, the first one that actually did that was Doom Eternal.
Yeah.
Doom Eternal wound up being a 9 out of 10. It was in the running for Game of the Year that year that it came out.
Yeah.
So, the first time they did it, it was stellar. But this time round, not so much.
That's the thing. I personally think it was shady with Doom 2. It's not going to look shady if the product that you end up getting is what you want. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, if the product you get is what you want, it's not going to feel shady even if it was. You know, whereas this time it feels shady because the product was not quality. And so I do want to say that's the other thing about this that I don't like on this whole pre-release thing. Like, I've said repeatedly, I don't like pre-release reviews because of what it does. It creates this, like, it creates a air of inauthenticity between the reviewers and the game developers, because somebody's lying somewhere along the line. It makes the reviewers score better because they don't want to lose access to the pre-release copy because all the other reviewers are getting it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then they're screwed. It makes the developers give you only the good copy and keep the other shit out. The people who are playing it on different different mediums other than the one that the review copy goes out on, they're screwed because they don't get to see an accurate review of the product that they're going to be playing. So I don't like that. That being said, there's no refund policy in games that really works. The 2-hour thing is bullshit. And I think that, like, I will say 2 hours was enough to see that this game was broken, but
Oh yeah.
usually the 2-hour thing is bullshit. You've been playing for 2 hours before you even realize what's going on. So all you have is these pre-release reviews because there's no refund process, you know, and they hype up the pre-order shit so much that it's like, if you're not pre-ordering it, what are you, a freaking herb? You know what I mean? Like, it's ridiculous. The way they play that game. But I want to get back into Redfall. So Redfall releases at midnight. Next day, I played it personally for an hour and a half. It is a train wreck. And I'm not going to say that there are not really cool aspects of this game. That's something I want to say right off the bat, because there is a community member, I'm not going to name names, but a community member who has been messaging me about this fucking game since it came out, which is slightly obnoxious. Not because he shouldn't be excited about it, he should be, but I can barely play the fucking thing. So, like, I think that, like, like, there is definitely stuff in there that's attractive and still attractive to me. I have played 5 hours. I was going to do a review. I don't know if I am, because I really don't like to be as negative as I would be in my review. But I played it for an hour and a half before I ended up streaming it that night. And then you guys can all watch me play it for an hour and a half again on stream. It's up on our channel. So you could see a lot of the bugs I found in it. You can also see how easy the game was, and you can see me actually put it on hard mode. And then the difficulty changed again. The next time I went in, I could not actually get anywhere. I just immediately died anywhere I moved. So, like, they're still balancing the difficulty in the process of this. I think there's also aspects of it that the person who was playing this is no doubt playing the console version locked at 30 frames per second version, which I think, and I'm hoping that you've played both just so that you can give me an idea. I think that might actually play a little bit better than the PC one. The PC one is a fucking nightmare. It frequently freezes. Not to crash, but freezes for a full 30 seconds before all of a sudden it'll start moving again. It'll do that in fights. It'll do that in moving. It just does it because the frame rate drops so low that it just pauses the game, basically. But not like pauses like you hit a button. Like pauses like it stops everything, then it restarts, and you get shot. There's huge frame rate dips. There are movement bugs for the bad guys constantly. Audio glitches that I know. The texturing in this game doesn't even just not focus in. In the review footage that I recorded, which I don't know will end up going up because I don't know if I want to do this review, to be honest. But in that review footage, I'm having a conversation with an NPC, and the background is literally just going fuzz, detailed, in between, fuzz, detailed, in between, fuzz, detailed, in between, while I'm standing still, talking to an NPC. Again, does this game not have good things? That's not true. It has some great ideas in it. But it's really hard because, like, I want to play this game. This game has things in it that I'm very attracted to. That's why I tried to jump back into it yesterday. But it's so unbelievably frustrating, the amount of bugs that you have to, like, swim through to play this game. And if you're out there like, oh, you need to mess with your PC settings, they don't even have a frame rate limiter on the PC. I can't set a locked frame rate on this game. I can't set my frame rate at all. There are all those, like, ridiculous, like, shader texture qualities things that have, like, a low, medium, high, and that's it. I put them all down to low. It still does it. And then I really can't tell what the fuck's going on because the textures, like, don't even try to load in as fast. I have a lot of theories about this, but I want to, before I get into the theories about this, I want to see what your play experience with the game has been.
So I wound up playing about a grand total of, I would say 2 hours at this point. Maybe a little over 2 hours.
What'd you play on?
The standard difficulty. Just
No.
standard.
Your medium.
Consoles-wise.
Okay.
So I did not try it on the PC. I did on the Series X and the streaming via the Project X Cloud.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
tell me about that.
So my experience on the console, I was very underwhelmed with a lot of the opening cinematic. One of the things that was touched upon in IGN's review, and I felt the same way, is it's almost like they couldn't be bothered to do like an actual animated thing for like an opening. It's just a bunch of still images while somebody's just a person, I'm sure they'll be revealed later in the game, is just talking about things, basically.
You know, I just want to touch on that. One of the most interesting things about that, I remember the IGN touching about that. That was my favorite part. One of my favorite parts. It would have been a pro. It would have been a pro. I loved the way they told the story because it was like, here's some story, now go shoot stuff. It didn't take long. I didn't get stuck in a long cinematic or drawn out narration, which I'd much rather the game tells the story while I'm playing it. I hate watching. If I want to watch a movie, I'll rent a movie. And I'm not saying you're wrong at all. I just feel like that is a little bit of taste for me. I don't necessarily think that's bad at all. Yeah, I think that was a thematic choice that they made.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's very much a thematic, artistic choice.
IGN, it kind of made it feel like. It made it feel like, to me, the way they presented it in the IGN review was like, we just never gonna like it was like the cinematics were cut, you know. That's kind of how IGN said it. Was like, well, the cinematics were kind of cut for this. Even though they don't say that, that's kind of how they present it. Like, almost like that was a feature that you're missing and we're docking them points for that. Personally, I think it was just like, no, we just want to get you into the action. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is I kind of feel like the action itself was a little bit lacking for like the very beginning of this game. Okay. Like, I did a lot of exploring in the area, that first opening area. But like the first enemies that you encounter, the cultists, very much like I was playing stealthy, you know, just kind of like, you know, trying to sneak around, get a good vantage, and then maybe pop them twice with headshots. There was a guy, the guy with the bullhorn at the very beginning, who's just screaming. Mm-hmm. I shot him and realized that I was just standing out in the open when I did it. He jolted for a second and then just went back to screaming. Yeah. Nobody paid attention to me. Nobody cared. Nobody anything.
The AI is terrible.
So then I just ran up on dudes and started punching them in the face, and it was totally fine. So there's that, and then the next group of enemies that I come across at the firehouse are like one single shot and I'm almost dead. Like the balancing is very bizarre with that.
See, and that what's weird is when I played the first time, I literally mowed everything down. I got so excited to find a vampire because they make it so creepy, and I took him down in 2 hits. I took him down in 3 hits on hard mode. Like it wasn't even a remote challenge at all. And that really bothered me. When I first played it, the first hour and a half, I played as Remy on normal. And I didn't die once. I didn't even come close to dying. I was just mowing everything down with want and abandon. Nobody was even like really like shooting at me properly. It was terrible. I was having more of a hard time. And the vampires just run straight at you, and then they do that very telegraphed claw, and you just sidestep. The only vampires that really gave me trouble were like the angler and the siphoning vampire. But when I first started playing it, I don't think they were working right, because they would just stand there and let me shoot them for like 2 minutes.
So my experience with fighting the vampires was totally different.
Okay.
They constantly, absolutely constantly, I'm playing as Jacob in my solo.
Okay.
Constantly, every single time, I will see one, and one of two things will happen. Either they'll act like they see me, float around for a second, and then go back to not giving a shit. Or a couple times, actively see me and run away. One time, there was one that like teleported into a house that I couldn't get into. There was that. There was another point when I was out and about going to the helicopter crash sites that I wasn't able to. I wasn't able to find one of the vampires, and come find out he was floating like way above me. He didn't see me. I shot at him. He was alerted, and then he took off into a hill, like into rock. So that threw me off a bit.
Have you ever died fighting a vampire and then gone to the safe house and then left the safe house and the vampire you were fighting just like it was attached to your instance? So it just spawns in the UV light when you open the door and dies. I've had that happen to me 7 times. I'll be fighting this vampire and it actually owns me. I'll respawn at the base. I'll walk out and it'll be there. It'll be like, I'm going to kill, and it'll just die right in front of me in the UV light. And I'm like, was that the angler that just kicked my ass over there? Oh, it was.
Yeah. So the AI is not great. There was a period when I was going to those crash sites on that first real mission, where 20 minutes, half hour, I didn't come across a single vampire. In fact, there was like one of those little supply drop chest things. I just stumbled across it, and it wasn't like protected, anything like that. I think there was a vampire nearby because I could hear it saying things, but I never found it. Yeah, very much like wandering around and there's nothing, almost like a Fallout 4 situation, to where there's like long swaths where there's nothing available
That's
around.
Weird. I have tons of stuff, and it's just all trash. It's just all trash. Can I ask you a question though? You kind of skated over what I was really asking you at first, which was the bugs. How many bugs have you, of the bugs that I have explained, like the technical bugs, have you noticed any of those on the Series X, or does it play at least better?
I feel like it plays a little bit better. Okay. There's some design choices that I would have preferred to not have be a thing. The overlay of whenever you get something.
Oh, it's so frustrating.
And it will not go away. It locks your B button down. Yeah. And it's really frustrating when you're in the middle of a fight. Yeah. And there's dudes, and it's like, hey, just so you know. And
you got the popcorn. You got the popcorn. I don't care about the popcorn.
I really don't care about this right now. Yeah, just those weird overlays.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Oh, a couple times I did. I don't know if this happened for you, but one of the first weapon drops, in fact, the very first loot drop that I got from that first vampire that you kill, I got what is it? The gold, the legendary equivalent of a
The
shotgun.
shotgun. Yeah,
Just-
so did I. Everybody
Yeah,
does.
right out of the gate, and then from there, the skin for it disappeared. So it was just a regular shotgun, but it had the stats of that. Now I will tell you too, playing on the Kishi, not a good time.
Okay. All right.
Not a good time.
That was going to be the next thing I asked. Yeah.
Yeah, not a good time on the Kishi. So you do still have, like, when you're streaming any game, you're going to have some frame rate dips from time to time. But it very much does not run any better on, like, streaming it from, a server somewhere to your console.
Right.
In fact, I feel like the texture pop in and everything is worse.
Yeah.
And, like, resolution of things did not go very well at all. I feel like my frame rate too was constantly hovering around 20 to 24 to 5.
Okay.
It wasn't even hitting 30. Honestly, it was unplayable for me. I died like twice just from like dudes whom, like, I was just walking through an area, didn't see dudes at all, then miraculously dudes. Honestly, one of the biggest gripes that I do have, from what I've experienced at least, is you cannot save mid-mission.
Right.
You have to finish your mission.
Yeah.
If you do not finish the mission, it wipes all progress.
It does seem to have some progress issues on that. Yeah.
Because that second mission, I played 3 times before I finally finished it. Because I would have thought that I would have checkpointed or something along those lines. Nope, not at all. So, like, I forced myself last night when I played it a little bit more to just get through the mission before I stopped, so I didn't have to do it a 4th time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Overall,
Go ahead.
I was going to say, overall, I will say, like, like you said, like, there is so much potential there. And, like, I think that's the thing that pisses me off the most.
Yeah.
Is, like, you can see that there's something there to it. It almost evokes that same sort of feeling of, it really is like a Far Cry, but like Far Cry and Left 4 Dead had a Blade baby. Like, that's the feeling that I get with it. Because it does get satisfying sometimes when you're in the middle of a fight and you see like a vampire, like, so you're taking out dudes, you take the vampire, you run up on him, stake him, oh, there's more dudes or another vampire, all right, turn around, It gets to feel good. It just runs like booty hole.
With the gunplay, when the game is running decent, the gunplay is phenomenal. I love the way the guns feel. I love the way they shoot. I love the loot system, the loot progression on that. I think the shooting is good. Like, the AI sucks. I'm not arguing with that, but like, you know what I mean? Like, the fights feel fun. They feel good and they feel engaging. The problem is you're just like surrounded by bugs and frame rate dips and all the other shit that you're dealing with, which leads me to what I was gonna say, which is tinfoil hat on. I really feel like Microsoft rushed this. I feel like they forced them to release this game, even though it needed another year in the tank easily. I don't think, and I think some of that's evident in the aftermath of this game's release, in which, and some of the things I do want to talk about on that, because I don't like the way that they've handled the aftermath of this release at all. Because,
oh yeah, that's gonna be the last part of this that we need to talk about.
Okay, well then we'll save it because I do want to talk about the good stuff. I think the characters are fun. I think the abilities are really cool. I think the art design is nifty. I like the basic loop of it. Which is what's so frustrating to me, is that every time, and that's what I kind of said on stream, it's like every time I start to get excited about something, something happens that like offsets it. When I was playing solo the other day, one of the things I love to do is explore just random houses. Those are really fun. And they always, Arcane has some really cool designs in it. They always have, like, every little house has its own little mystery to it. You know, like, oh, there's a bedroom here that you can't get into. How do you get the key there? You know, how many vampires? What vampires in here? And it was this tricky house where, like, there were the upstairs and the downstairs. Like, the downstairs was a shop and the upstairs was a living quarters. And you had to go, like, out and then back in. There's some creepiness going on, and I'm in the top of the house kind of like looking around, and I realize that a door's locked. I'm gonna have to find a key from the basement, and I'm like, this is cool. I'm like searching this house. A vampire could jump out at me anytime, and I've got to fight it, and I've got to figure out. I'm unlocking the mystery of this, and then I see the shroud's head floating just slightly into the floor. Like, just a chunk of it floating up to the floor. And I was like, oh, so it's a shroud. It's in the basement. I'm going to go down there. I'm going to use a lockpick. I'm going to get in. I'm going to kill it. It's just like every time I start to get excited about something, the game's bugginess or weird UI choices, like, just ruin it for you. And it's like a constant rain on the parade sort of situation. And it's a real fucking bummer to me. How this is, and again, I cannot help but feel like this game needed one more year, and I think Arcane was planning on doing it for one more year. I think they were forced to do this because Microsoft needed a win, because Xbox needs a win, because Xbox is getting pressure from Microsoft, and now we're in a situation like this.
So, I mean, I think at this point we should go into the, I guess, the fallout thereof game.
I want to talk about one more thing.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Just one more thing before we move off. The difficulty spikes. Okay. So, when I first started playing this game, I told you, I played it on normal as Remy for an hour and a half. It was easy as pie. I shredded everything. I got so upset because it was like, there's so little challenge here, that when I streamed, I turned it on hard, played for an hour and a half, and it was much more of a challenge, but I still only died twice. One of those deaths was because I was standing close to a flaming barrel that I didn't realize was there. Like, yeah, it's not like the game beat me. So, then, the third time I played, I came back in a couple of days later, playing on hard, same game. I could not get across the fucking street. I was just like, anglers were dropping from the ceiling, vampires were dropping from the ceiling. All their damages were way higher than they were before. Like, hard mode was dealing a lot of damage, but now they were like one-shotting me. Like, I was just, cultists were everywhere. I was getting killed constantly, to the point where I had to turn it back down to normal to get the same experience I was getting from hard mode. So what was really weird is the whole time I'm going back and forth with Jason, because I don't think the console edition had this problem at all. And Jason was like, man, this game is so fucking hard. It's like totally OP. And I'm like, no, it isn't. Like, watch my stream. I just wiped the floor with everything I meet. What are you talking about? And like, he just kept saying it was OP. And I'm like, I don't know how to continue to have this conversation because I'm going to insult him and I don't want to insult him. And then I go back in and I'm like, these guys are OP. How am I fucking dying now? So I feel like this game is so out of balance that way that on its base level, it's constantly spiking and going back down, depending on the instance in which you're logging into it. I don't even feel like the difficulty is stable. I feel like when I first logged in, even though I hit the normal mode, it gave me easy. And when I hit the hard, it gave me normal. And then it righted that the next time I came in. So I don't even think the difficulty is stable on it. I don't even think the base options on this are stable, which leads me to wonder if anything I'm doing in the graphical options are even changing anything. Like, is that how broken this is right now?
I mean, I would not be surprised. I mean, in the review, the IGN review, they had talked about buttons just full on, like, not doing anything. Like,
oh yeah,
that is like when you know your buttons, if you push a button and it's not even registering, or it's saying that you can't push that button when it's something standard for like a jump or something like that, you know there's some fuckery going on right there. I would not be surprised if like there was a balancing issue or there was some sort of glitch to where you were not like getting the appropriate difficulty.
I don't think I
that
was.
You're supposed to get.
I really don't think I was. So let's go into the Fallout. I just wanted to cover that because I've been going back and forth with Jason, and he's probably thinking I'm crazy too. So just wanted to cover that a little bit.
So the fallout from this. So there's been a ton of different stories and everything so far. First and foremost, there's not been one single solitary peep from Arcane in regard to this. No acknowledgement of, hey, we know that this isn't what you wanted, anything like that. It's now one of the lowest rated games on Steam of all time. It's absolutely hemorrhaging players already. And it wasn't even hyper popular to begin with, probably due to the reviews and people's tepidness to that. And Phil Spencer says, meh.
Phil Spencer said more than meh. He said worse stuff than meh. And I want to go into that. You're right about all of this. And if I was Arcane right now, I would be absolutely irate. Because personally, I think behind the scenes, Phil Spencer, I don't have anything to corroborate this, but I think Phil Spencer said, we need a win. We need a AAA win. Arcane's going to do it. Get Redfall out the door. And they were like, it's not ready, but we'll do our best. And then they got it out the door, and it was a train wreck. And then I think they were like, Phil, we told you it was going to be a train wreck. We needed more time. And Phil was like, don't worry. I'm going to talk to the press. I'll take the heat for it. Phil took the heat by saying he didn't help enough. That's how he said. Like, that's what bothered me about it, is that he was like, well, I wasn't as much in on the process as I probably should have. I'm way more in on the process on Starfield, so that's going to be a winner. Even though that's going to be locked at 30 frames per second. I think that, like, if I was Arcane, I was like, okay, you told us to get it out the door when we told you it wasn't ready. Now you told us not to say anything so that you could basically blame us more for it? Like, what are you doing? Like, how could we possibly fix this? Because we all have to remember, Arcane is owned by Xbox. Okay? They're an Xbox studio. So, like, they do what Phil Spencer says. And if you're not hearing from them, I don't think it's because Arcane isn't saying anything. I think we should have at least gotten the obligatory, hey, man, we're really sorry. But I think they knew that this was going to be a train wreck. I think they didn't want to release it. I think they got pressure to release it. I think and I'm not taking all the weight off them. I know I'm making them kind of look like the victims. But if you just follow the train of events for Arcane as a studio and all the games they've released previous to this, none of them have had anything near to this. None of them. They have all been, at the very least, technically sound, if not critically acclaimed. Like, none of them have had train wreck levels, and they were all released before they were owned by Xbox. And that brings me to the big fucking, maybe it's you, honey. Maybe it's Xbox. All these studios have great games, then Xbox buys them. And now we're in this situation.
Yeah, and you take a look at it, like there was on Reddit, there was this thing going around for a while that people were comparing screenshots from Prey, which came out in 2016, 2017, something along those lines, comparing Prey to this here now, a game that's 6-7 years older than what this is, and this is objectively worse.
Yeah.
Graphically and everything along those lines.
It's worse
Granted,
than
they were
Dishonored
different.
Too, in my opinion.
Dishonored's and everything too. Now, granted, those were different games, different types of games. That, to be fair, I will absolutely give them that. But like you said, this thing needed more time, and this absolutely, the amount of articles that I'm reading now of okay, now it's time to be concerned about Starfield. Like everybody was very like, you know what, they're gonna find a way to do it, and even IGN, what's his name, McCaffrey, did a little video essay thing on it. At this point, Starfield absolutely must be at least a 9 out of 10, because if it is anything less than that, people are going to lose all faith in Microsoft and their ability to get first-party games out.
And let me go ahead and point to you why the merger is bad now, ladies and gentlemen, because we're going to tie it all back together like a season finale. That's the reason the merger is bad, because can you give up Game Pass even if their games suck? I sure as hell can't, because all of the games are on Game Pass. That's why the merger's bad, because they don't have to produce good games to keep you in their ecosystem anymore.
Nope.
And that's the whole loop here, is that that's what I find so funny. I saw that article too. It has to be a 9 out of 10. Or what, McCaffrey? What? What are you going to do? You going to cancel your Game Pass? I don't think so. Microsoft has hooked every gamer on their own personal form of heroin. That's what they've done. They've built a heroin for us. We're stuck on it. And until they decide to turn off the tap, we're stuck on Game Pass because it's the best value in gaming. And it still is, as much as I hate that company. You know? Oh, man. Microsoft is...
See, I feel like in regard to Game Pass stuff, I have a lot of the stuff that is already on Game Pass. There's very few games that are on Game Pass that I actively are like, oh man, I need to / want to play that. Like, sure, You Suck at Parking, what we've played, on here.
Okay, cancel
stream.
your Game Pass. You're talking a big talk there.
Well, I physically can't because it's prepaid for 2 years with Xbox All Access.
Well, there you go.
But that's the thing is, that's the thing with even like Halo Infinite. Like, okay, whenever I first got Game Pass, it was like, awesome, I'm going to get Halo Infinite and not have to pay any money. And sure, yeah, the campaign is there that I played for a couple hours and that was it. And the multiplayer is free to play.
Yeah.
That's the thing is they're making the case to people that, sure, like, there are very few people who don't have Game Pass that want Game Pass at this point. Yeah. They're basically hitting their critical mass. But I think there's eventually going to be an exodus if people know that they cannot rely on all these other games being decent, because eventually all the games that are in Game Pass, they either are available like on the super cheap if they aren't already, or people will just be like, yeah, if I feel like playing it, I'll sign up for a month and then do whatever, I still think Game Pass is a good value. Not saying that it's not. But that value kind of weakens when you look at the future prospects.
I mean, the future prospects
been given.
The future prospects are still there because they get AAA and AA independents to sign up on Game Pass day and date.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, they've still got a ton in that coming soon that are going to be day and date Game Pass originals. Like, they'll come out on all the consoles, but they'll come out on your subscription too on the date of. Like, they don't need those AAA games to make money on Game Pass. They don't. I disagree with you wholeheartedly on this. I do not think that... I don't think you can give up Game Pass as long as they can keep consistently providing those with you. Just like you said, now Marvel Sons is coming to Game Pass. They've got a bunch more that have been announced in the Game Pass. They got that Exo Primal one coming in day and date in a Game Pass. I think there are a lot of AAA games coming to Game Pass that aren't necessarily exclusives, but they've got them coming in day one. So, like, yeah, okay, Halo sucked, but I don't think anybody on Game Pass right now is still expecting to have day and date good Xbox first-party games. they're not there for that. I'm not there for that. I'm not on Game Pass for the first-party Xbox games. I'm on it for all the other ones that I get through there, and not the ones I already own, the other ones. I think that, like, that's their value. That's where they have the stranglehold, because you know what? I'll tell you this right now. I'll buy you 3 pizzas if in 2 years you cancel Game Pass to prove me wrong. Okay, no problem. You cancel Game Pass and you don't go back, I'll buy you 3 pizzas. But I don't think you're going to do that, man. And I'm not trying to like call you out, but I'm calling anybody out. I don't think anybody's going to give up Game Pass as long as they're... Because what has come out in the last 5 fucking years that's mattered from a first-party Xbox studio? Nothing. Yeah,
I mean, they barely even had anything in the past 5 years.
First-party games didn't bring anybody to Games Pass in the first place. There weren't any first-party games. There still isn't any first-party games. Nobody bought Game Pass for first-party games. Or if they did, they certainly didn't stay there for them. Anybody on Game Pass as a long-term customer is on Game Pass for other games. They're not there for fucking the promise of Halo or Redfall or even fucking Starfield. They're not. Like, they are on Game Pass for the library that Game Pass produces, completely aside from their first-party studio, because their first-party studios has been a failure since the last console generation. So, like, nobody's on Game Pass for that.
I mean, that is a fair point. You know, all the third-party stuff on Game Pass.
Yeah.
Third-party stuff on Game Pass is a very fair point. But I don't know, like, they're not making their case for them even continuing being first-party. I mean, at the rate they're going,
No.
why not just turn into something akin to, like, Steam for consoles? Keep making your hardware, make your little, like, a Steam box situation. That's what the Series S basically is anyways.
That's what they've been trying to do.
And that's what they've been trying to do. But now it's almost like it's either one of the two things. Either that's what they're actively trying to do, or they are failing so spectacularly. People at this point, like, cannot, like, really wrap their heads around
Right.
it. And, you know, think about, too, like, sure, we had Hi-Fi Rush, which was, you know, it was a good game, good first-party game, but not, you know, like a massive AAA that draws people in. We've now had Redfall, which is booty hole trash garbage. And then we have Starfield coming this year. Honestly, at this point, apparently, I would not be astounded if they hit us with another delay at this point on Starfield, just to make sure everything's good. And they also, there was that article that I shared with you too, that they basically like danced around the idea of like it was something asked along the lines of if Starfield's going to run at 60 frames per second. And their response was there's going to be an announcement regarding all of that stuff at the Starfield showcase, which basically says, hey, oh, by the way, this other next-gen thing or current-gen thing is also not going to run at 60 frames per second. It's going to be at a 30. I personally, at this point, I don't know if this makes me wrong to feel this way, but with the hardware that we have, and we've had graphical improvements and, you know, the stuff that they can do, if you have games that aren't consistently running at 60 frames or at least targeting 60 frames, I feel like, I don't know, it's like a waste almost, especially something like Redfall. Because one of the things that was mentioned in the IGN review, and I couldn't agree more, is it doesn't look like a current gen game. It looks like a previous generation game.
I don't know if I agree with this. Because there are plenty of like my most favorite games are like independent games that don't necessarily run at 60 frames per second. I don't think that, like, personally, hear me out on this. Personally, I think if they had said all Redfall is going to be locked at 30 frames per second for at least the first, like, whatever amount of time, it's just the way it's going to be. from the sounds of it, they would have gotten a better review. You know, I think I kind of agree with Luke Riley. He said this in the IGN review, and he said, like, I'm not going to throw my toys out of the, out of the playpen because it runs at 30 frames per second. I'm just not. Like, that's not a deal breaker for me and never will be. It's not for me either. I think that, like, I think the problem is every other console runs, well, not really Switch, but you know what I mean. Like, most consoles run at 60 frames per second. And you have to stop promising 60 frames per second. I think one of the big differentials, too, is you have, like, the Xbox Series X. Not even the S, the big one. The big bad boy one. That one, people were buying that for the specs, which is, 4K, 60 frames per second,
Yeah.
I think that's the big discrepancy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, that's... And I guess that's a little bit of a difference
I
in
see
the
what
situation.
you're saying. I'm not trying to,
if,
shoot you down or anything.
Yeah, no, if it's one of those things to where, like, I may have missed it, but if they had said, if they originally had said, hey, 60 frames, we're going 60 frames on this, and then they release the game, and it's like, well, it's actually 30 frames, but 60 later, which is why they're in the situation with putting the stickers on the boxes and all that shit. That I feel like is a little bit different of a situation. When you come out confidently say one thing, and then, oh, well, it's not going to be that. Because at that point, that tells me that you wanted to push this thing out the door before you optimized it. Yeah. You didn't want it to be in the final state that you wanted to present it as. Yeah. I mean, it's not like, in high school, you can submit half a paper and say, hey, this is what I'm turning in for my grade. But just so you know, I'm going to finish it and do the spell checks and revisions in 2 weeks. But I turned it in. Yeah. That you're going to get graded based off of what you turned in. Yeah. And that's kind of where we're at. But unfortunately, that's the norm now of gaming. It's just somebody trying to write their paper as fast as they can and get it turned in and say, oh, well, you know what? We'll take care of the heavy lifting later. Yeah. I almost wonder if it's like, I feel like I could be just completely imagining this, but I feel like we were at a point where games went from taking like 3 years to make, and then overnight, surprise, it takes like 6-7 years to make. I don't know if it's people announcing stuff too early. I don't know if it's just development has changed that much, but I feel like now, because of this hype train that everybody rides on all the time, they get wrapped up in, well, we've talked about it. They know it's a thing. We need to get it in people's hands now because they're ravenous for these sorts of things. I don't know if that's a situation where it was now, but I mean, from everything that we've seen with Redfall and how it's been handled, like we've said, Microsoft has been in a situation for a while, and they needed a first-party game to be out. And here it is. But I do think, like you mentioned, another year of being in the oven, I think it would have been a lot better than it is now.
I think if they let Arcane continue to work on it, it will be good in another year. I don't hate the game. I know we've been bashing on it. I truly think this was a Phil Spencer kicked the door in and was like, you have to release this by May. Do what you got to do. And they did what they got to do, and now they're in this situation. The 6 to 7 years, I mean, the gaming industry has no regulators, has no, like, limiters, and because of that, it's just gotten so bloated. You know, it makes so much money, and it's almost like the companies and the developers don't know what to do with it, so they just keep adding stuff to the game. Personally, I don't need 60 frames per second. I don't need 4K. My eyes can't even really tell the difference between 1080p and 4K, so I don't know why the fuck that matters to me. I think that, like, the problem is that they're so concerned with what they think they can do. They stop thinking about what they should do. which is just make quality games. I don't think it would be that hard. I don't think we would be above 2 or 3 years if they just came up with a game concept, created that game from the ground up, and then sold that game. But instead, we were so bloated and we're so concerned with like high graphics and not us, but the company. The companies are, the billions of dollars that they put into these games, and then they've got to get so much out of them. And that's the problem. It's just so bloated that like, you have mentioned a potential games as service crash. I think a gaming industry crash is on the horizon because the games take way longer to make and way more money to make than they ever are going to get back. Then they're starting to get to a point where they take longer and cost more than they're going to make back. And when you're riding that line, that's when you have a crash. And like, I'm going to tell you right now, my favorite games are not AAA games anymore. They're not. They're the games that like have a simple set goal, and the company has the foresight knowledge to just make that game. It doesn't matter what it looks like, or like I said, like Wildermyth. I know I always mention it. Philbilly's into War Tales right now, which looks really good. I want to play Age of Wonders 4. Looks great. They're not huge 60 frame per second badass games. They're going to blow your fucking mind hole out. But they're good games with quality amounts of replay value, with quality amounts of systems there that are there for you to play. Sifu. I'm still fucking playing Sifu. Just keep making Sifu. Like games like that, that game isn't going to take 6 to 7 years and $1 billion to make. You know what I mean? And I think that's where we are. Is the industry is it just keeps like getting bigger and bigger and bigger until it's going to explode. But we got to wrap this up because I can't fucking talk anymore. I just can't. Do you got anything special you want to play?
Well, after everything that we just talked about, I'm pretty sure we're still on slate to do it. We're gonna play Redfall actually as a group. Kayla, Zach, and myself. We don't have a name for it, and honestly, at this point, who knows? Yeah, we're actually all gonna play it. We're gonna do it as like a let's play long form sort of situation. Who knows at this point when we're going to start recording it due to the illness. We were going to start doing it this week. Maybe yes, maybe no, TBD sort of situation.
Yeah. Hopefully this week. If we get it done, if we get it started this week, then probably towards the end of the month we'll start posting them.
I definitely cannot wait to go upstairs after this because Kayla started playing it for the first time before I came down here, and she's still on it. So
I don't know. She's a weird one, man. I love your wife, but like she was like, I like Cyberpunk because cars explode and they fly into the sky. I remember that, and I was like, okay, like it made my nostrils flare, but I was like, I respect your opinion. Like I think that like I don't know, she might love it. It's interesting. I think that you and I have to make like just a promise to ourselves to not be super negative the entire time, or it'll be a real downer of a show.
I think it'll be funny because inevitably stupid shit's gonna happen. So
I think that stupid shit will only be funny if we're not just bitching about the game the entire time.
That's fair.
We have to do our normal bits. If we don't do our normal bits, and the whole thing just turns into extra episodes of the podcast with Kayla like, guys, please, can we just play? It's not going to be fun. I think we just have to make the concerted effort to not just whine about every little thing while we're playing. All right, that's it. I'm not plugging anything. Watch the shows that we've put out. We have a lot of them. We got streams. Watch them. Or don't. 370 is a good amount of subscribers. If that's what I die with, that's what I die with. And we'll leave you with that. Yeah. You guys will be back next week with another episode. Sorry about my voice. I should be better by next week. Thank you very much, and we'll see you guys then.